Hello everyone, welcome on in. It is Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. It's the number one tennis betting podcast and YouTube show brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. We have had the Australian Open. We've had 2 weeks of high-level tennis where the best player in the world has landed the spoils. No surprise really, Jannik Sinner winning his third major championship. And now we are back to the nitty-gritty of the tour, the 250 event in Montpellier. And I know he's more excited about this than you had been about Wimbledon, about the French Open, or the Australian Open. Is our senior ATP Tour handicapper, is Sean Calvert. Now, Sean, I know...
I don't know about that.
I bet you're like a kid at Christmas this morning. Montpellier 250, see, I'm going to find some winners. It must be really exciting in the Calvert house.
Not really, because I had to spend all morning out in the freezing cold watching Lagan play football in the middle of nowhere, somewhere called Corringham. I didn't even know that existed until today.
Wasn't he a goalkeeper for England back in the 80s? Joe
Corrigan, I think that was. Yeah, no, Corringham.
Oh, right, okay.
It's somewhere in between Basildon and Stanford-la-Hope. That's all I know. Anyway, it was freezing. I mean, it was really, really cold. Anyway, they won. So
nice, well worth the cold.
So yeah, I haven't really had time to get too excited about Montpellier because I've had a lot of running around to do and watching football. Not literally running around, but ferrying Lagan from A to B, watching him play football, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's exciting times. The ATP 250 in Montpellier. It is true, to be fair. I do prefer the 250s to the majors. Yeah, that is definitely true. This one is, this one is probably not top of the list, in all fairness.
Well, before we move on to this week in Montpellier, there's only one tournament. There's also some Davis Cup action, which you'll be able to get across to the Bet Rivers website or the app if you download there, if you want to look at that. Please remember to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Lots of you have subscribed in the last couple of weeks over the Australian Open. The tennis doesn't matter where it is, as long as there's a winner or as we cash a ticket. Doesn't matter if it's the Australian Open, the US Open, or in Montpellier. It always pays the same. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell as well, and be notified of everything that we are doing on the channel, which is lots and lots of good content at the moment in time. Before we go on to Montpellier, let's have a look at the Australian Open. And obviously, Jannik Sinner has won it. He was a tournament favourite. You said at the beginning, if you were ever going to have a bet, it would be Jannik Sinner. All the way through the tournament, I offered you a free bet. It was Jannik Sinner. He is the number one seed, but he has now established himself as the number one seed. He's the top player in the world. He come through against the number two seed, Zverev, today in pretty relentless form, really. I mean, there was only one stage in the second set where Zverev had a break point. He took a break, a mini break in the tie break and second set tie break. But Sinner was so convincing the 6-3, 7-6, 6-3 routine win. I mean, and this guy is just playing on a different level at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, he was today, that's for sure. He was against De Minaur as well earlier in the week. We said, didn't we, if Sinner plays his best stuff and keeps it up for three sets, three to four sets, then he's almost certainly going to win. From he plays that, it's just a different level when he plays that way, which he is more and more these days. As far as Zverev is concerned, again, disappointing in a way, predictable in another way. He just, he doesn't have that. As I said, he doesn't have that belief that he can beat these guys in the big tournaments, and it's a kind of a mediocre performance for him today, wasn't it? A lot of unforced errors. He's got to play his A game, and he's got to believe. And he didn't play his A game, and I don't think he believed either. The shoulders had gone down pretty early, hadn't they? That said, if he'd have taken his chances in the second set, taken that tie break, we might have seen a more physical element be brought into that final. There's still a few question marks about Jannik Sinner when it comes to physicality. He was stretching out I think it was his left hamstring at one stage, relatively early on. I think it was either the first or second set. So you never know when he's going to hit the wall physically. So from his very point of view, if he'd have taken that set, which he probably should have done, or certainly had chances to, not only would it have brought in my over minutes bet, but it would have been, I think, more interesting for the paying public and everybody that watched that match to see if Sinner could slug it out in a really long 4 or a 5 set match with Zverev. That would have been interesting, but Sinner was in no mood to let that happen.
No, and he's been relentless in them big points. When he gets these opportunities, he just raises his game at a big level.
He's convincing. Yeah. So is Alcaraz. So is Djokovic. Zverev isn't. That was the whole point I was trying to make. When he gets them chances, Zverev, he just doesn't convince at all. He doesn't have that same complete belief in himself at those big moments. But then Sinner, he does.
Let's have a look at some futures for the next couple of majors. Bet Rivers have updated their futures after Sinner's win today in Australia. And the French Open, Carlos Alcaraz is still the marginal favourite, plus 150. Yannick Sinner is plus 170. So Alcaraz still holds a very slight advantage there on the French Open. Novak Djokovic is next at 650. Then we go into big prices. The market is dominated by the front two now, hugely. Wimbledon, Yannick Sinner now the favourite to win Wimbledon, ahead of Carlos Alcaraz. 150 Yannick Sinner, $2 Alcaraz, and 4-1 Novak Djokovic. And in the US Open, which is the one that you would expect Sinner to be very, very hard to beat, he's plus 125 to win that. Carlos Alcaraz is $3 and Novak Djokovic is 5-1. So the market is just now Sinner and Alcaraz. It looks like they're going to share the majors between the two of them. I'm looking at the US Open. I think Yannick Sinner probably should be even lower than evens, minus money to win that tournament. And really, the one that you got a doubt about is Sinner to win the French Open. But are we potentially talking about someone winning a Grand Slam here? Not far off the chances. He's probably got the best chance of anybody. For years to win a Grand Slam. Djokovic has had it, but he's got a good chance.
Quality-wise, yeah. I mean, quality-wise, you can't argue with that assessment. But does he have the physicality to win all 4 Grand Slams in the same year? And it's a big effort to win one, let alone 2, 3, 4. I think the only question mark would be, well, not the only, but the main question mark would be physicality, wouldn't it? The French Open, does he have the physicality to win that tournament? That's certainly still up for debate, isn't it? For me, there is still that question mark there. Talent-wise, ability-wise, yes, it's certainly an option. But I think realistically, it's a tall order to ask him to beat probably Alcaraz. Maybe Djokovic if his body allows him to do it, and to win all 4. I think it's a tall order.
Well, I think the reason I think he's got one of the best chances in recent years is because when Federer was doing it and Djokovic doing it, they ran into Nadal. And I don't believe that Alcaraz is anywhere near Nadal. And you're talking about physicality, and he can work on that. Whereas Alcaraz, I think, is going through a bit of a bad patch in form as well. So all that is to come over the next few months here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. It's all about tomorrow, and it's all about here and now. We got a massive tournament. We got the Montpellier 250 to talk about. I am going. I'm going on Wednesday. Flying in on Wednesday, going there on tennis on Thursday, and back on Friday. You'll be able to follow me on our Instagram page and our Twitter page at Because We Win. Let's have a look before we go on to any of the draws or any of the outright prices, or who's got the best draw and who hasn't got the best draw and who comes here fresh and who doesn't. Give us some statistics here, Sean, and have a look at where we got to go for our sort of identity kit of a potential winner.
Yeah, I'm not sure too many people are coming here fresh and fit. There hasn't been anybody fit all season, has there? Apart from 1 or 2. Yeah, it's played on a green set indoor hard court, or it certainly was in previous years. We don't get that information from the ATP anymore. They just call it hard, which isn't helpful. But it's usually a green set. And they used head balls last year, which the combination of those two made it a lot slower last year than it was in previous years. Last year, the best quote I've got really is from Mayo, who said, the ball was a bit slow on this court. The serve is not counting so much. And that's borne out in the stats. There was only 75% holds of serve here last year and 69.5% first serve points won. That puts it very, very slow. There's clay that's not too far behind that. So very, very slow conditions. There were still 38% of the matches featured a tie break. The problem with going on last year's numbers is when it's an indoor tournament is that they can change it at any point, because these courts obviously are only put down for this week, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is. Then they're taken up and then they do something else with that arena. So they can do whatever they like with it. They could make this 10 times quicker this year than it was last year. So we can only really go on what's happened before. This year could be different. We don't know. I imagine it'll still be head balls. I imagine they got a contract for a few years for the head balls, but there's a chance they could have made it quicker, having seen the statistics that came out of last year's tournament. As far as the last 6 editions are concerned, there's a trend to the unders. Actually, 54% of the matches have been under 22.5 games in the last 6 editions. Over 10.5 games in set one, there was 37% of them in 2024, even though they're very, very slow conditions, and the stats suggest that it's very slow. There was still an all right amount of set one overs. Underdogs, it averages about 34%, which is kind of the tour average. Nothing exciting there as far as that stat is concerned. And the trends, no qualifier has ever made the final here in 13 editions of this tournament. 8 of the last 9 champions have been priced between 3-1 and 8-1. And Alexander Bublik in 2022 is the only player ever to have won this tournament from outside the top 5 in the market, in the betting. So in that case, this year, Rublev, Aliassime, Kaboli, Bublik and Griekspoor, if you're going by that trend, they're generally the only ones that can win it.
Yeah, if you look back at the previous winners, Alexander Bublik won it in 2024. Yannick Sinner, the Australian Open champion, won it in 2023. Bublik again won it in 2022. Goffin won it in 2021. Gael Monfils won it in 2020. And then if you look prior to that, a lot of French players have won this tournament. Yeah. French players have gone very, very well in this tournament here in the south of France. Let's have a look at the draw. Andrey Rublev has taken a wild card and he's gone straight in as the number 1 seed after his loss against Fonseca at the Australian Open. He's in the top half of the draw. The top 4 seeds, it all get buys. So the top 4 seeds are Rublev at number 1. In the top half alongside him is Bublik. And in the bottom half, Kaboli and Felix Auger-Aliassime. So all those players are buys. If it goes to the schedule, Rublev will play Rinderknech. Bublik will play Goffin. Griekspoor will play Kaboli. And Boo will play Felix Auger-Aliassime. Doesn't really seem to be... I suppose the bottom half is a little bit easier than the top half of the draw, but motivation is going to be a big thing here after a major. You've got a big tournament coming up in next week as well, a 500 in Rotterdam, I suppose. Yeah. It's not many people. I can't imagine Rublev being motivated for this. But he is the favourite. He is plus 330 with Bet Rivers. Felix Auger-Aliassime is plus 440. He plays an awful lot of tennis. Every week, Felix Auger-Aliassime is there. Kaboli, 750, maybe suited by the slow conditions. Bublik at $10. He's obviously a 2-time champion here. Talon Griekspoor, maybe too slow for the Dutchman. He's 12 and probably got Rotterdam next week to concentrate on. He's 12. Artur Cazaux, 18. Borna 20. Christopher Eubank, 20. Rinderknech, 20. Then we go into some big prices after that, 22-1 after that, with a lot of French players in that middle bracket. Outright market, Rublev plus 330. I wouldn't want to be taking that.
No. I mean, I'm just looking at his recent record here. I think he's only won 3 out of his last 14, 15 matches, something like that, Rublev. And that's why he's taken the wild card. Bundled out of the Australian Open in the first round. Very difficult draw, obviously, against Fonseca. It's very unlucky to get him in the first round, but, that's how tennis goes. So that's why he's taking the wild card. He wasn't originally supposed to play this week, but he needs the wins, doesn't he? His confidence must be very low, and he's that kind of guy anyway, isn't he? He's talked about how he struggles mentally, anxiety, and depression, and all the rest of it. And looking at these results, he's a guy who struggles for confidence anyway. Even when he's playing well, he's still got them sort of demons, if you want to call it that, kind of nagging away at him. With this run that he's on at the minute, he must be, really struggling. And this could be a good week for him. If he comes here and wins this tournament, it's certainly winnable. It's definitely winnable. If you look outside the top sort of 4 or 5 in the betting, it's very open up after that, isn't it? If you take Griekspoor, 1, 2, 3, 4, is 5th. After that, it's anybody's guess, isn't it? Griekspoor, for me, as you mentioned there, I think he's much more likely to be going for Rotterdam next week. He always plays well in Rotterdam, or always really gives it 1,000% in Rotterdam. It's his home tournament. He's played well there many, many times, and he's been struggling with injury. So you can't imagine that Griekspoor would want to really push himself too much this week, given that he's struggled with injuries already this season, and that he has Rotterdam next week. Felix is an obvious contender, but plus 440 for me doesn't convince me a lot of the time. Felix, I couldn't back him at that price. For me, looking at this top half of the draw, I think you have to go with, on a horses for courses basis, you have to go with Sasha Bublik, I think, at 10-1. He's got an amazing record here, 10 wins from 12 matches that he's played here. He's got an all right record against Rublev as well. You probably remember the last time that Rublev and Bublik play. I think you were there. They played each other in Dubai. It was the default I'm sure you remember it. Was it Dubai or Doha?
I wasn't there. I wasn't that much.
You
It must have been Doha. I don't know where it was.
I think it was either Dubai or Doha. Had you? I think you.
I might have been there, but I wasn't at the match.
I think you were at the tournament. I think you were at the tournament. And it was a default, wasn't it, for Rublev at the end? I think it was 2 tie breaks and then 6-5 in the third, and Rublev got defaulted. But it's been very, very, very competitive career series. Certainly latterly, Bublik's beat him 3 times if you include that default. And this second quarter of the draw does look pretty comfortable for Bublik. I know he's been in absolutely rotten form, but something about Montpellier appeals to him. He's never done well in Australia, Bublik, so that doesn't worry me. The fact that he's not gone well in Australia. Last year he lost in the first round of the Australian Open to it was the Indian player. I can't remember his name now, but he Sumit Nagal. Sumit Nagal beat Bublik in the first round of the Australian Open, and he came straight to Montpellier and won it. So, I think he lost every first set last year. Bublik went on to win every match in 3, having dropped the opening set. Very strange situation, but there's something about this that he loves, and he doesn't love Rotterdam. He's played 8 matches in Rotterdam, Sasha Bublik, and he's only won 3 of them. So he's certainly not going to be thinking about Rotterdam next week. He's got a great record here. He obviously loves playing here for whatever reason. He's got an all right record against Rublev. His quarter has got Barrère, Kopfer, Mattia, Bellucci, Luca Pouille, David Goffin. That's not too difficult. It shouldn't be on paper. So Bublik for me. The rest of them, the only other one I considered right at the start before I saw the draw was Cazaux, because he's a local boy. He's from Montpellier. But he's another one that's been struggling with injuries. A lot of injury problems he's had over the last sort of 10, 11 months, and this season as well. And he's got a difficult draw. He would have to beat Wawrinka, then Felix, then maybe Boo or Coric, who I think made the final here last year, then potentially Griekspoor or Kaboli. I think that's too much to ask for him at about 16-1, 18-1, whatever he is. So Bublik for me, I think he's the one guy other than the French players who is highly motivated and loves playing here. So yeah, Bublik.
Alexander Bublik. I looked through the draw as well, and he was the one that I put the pin on. And the only thing I'm worried about is if he gets an early start. If he gets an early start, we don't want to be on Alexander Bublik. But I
don't think there's too many early starts in these French tournaments.
12 o'clock start it is. So it's that's
12. That's all right. Yeah, he can cope with 12. Right, he wouldn't be on first anyway because he's one of the high seeds. He'd probably more likely to have an evening match, but we'll see.
Yeah, Bublik is the pick for Sean here in Montpellier, 10-1, head across the BetRivers website. Is it a win-only pick or just an each-way play? What are we doing?
I think we can go each way on this, 10-1. I think it's just about big enough to go each way. It's a lot will depend on Rublev's mood, of course, and his form and all the rest of it. But I think Sasha is the value here.
Yep, 5-1 to get to the final. A nice each-way play on Alexander Bublik, a man who has won this tournament twice before. And we're going to get a third tournament, and one player we think is going to give it all. And is that the Russian here? Kazakhstani now, isn't he? Kazakhstani now.
Plays for Kazakhstan. Was born in Russia, of course. He needs the other thing is he needs the ranking points as well. He's dropping 250 points, obviously, for his win here last year. And he's going to be struggling to stay in the top 50 at the moment if he loses early here.
A very good motivation for him, and at 10-1 each way, we believe that is the best bet for the 250 this week in Montpellier. We have looking at now 3 first round matches, and the first round we're going to discuss is a match that's on tomorrow at 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We think it's tomorrow. The order of play isn't out yet. We've recorded this on Sunday, but the order of play the action does start at 4:30 a.m. So we just say all these around about 4:30 a.m. So if you want to have a bet, watch the show. I know it's a big night of American football tonight, NFL, but if you want to bet on the tennis, head across to the BetRivers website and get the bet on tonight. But just be on the safe side. You're really waking up missing the action because it could start at 4:30 a.m. And if you do have a bet on the BetRivers website, as I've said many, many times before, you can watch the action here on the website and on the app. Okay, let's move on to this match. Mannarino against Richard Gasquet, two French players in absolutely diabolical form. Adrian Mannarino is minus 148. Richard Gasquet is plus 120. The spread here is 1.5. The total here is 22.5. They've met 4 times before. Richard Gasquet leads 3-1. Long time ago. The first time they met was in 2011 in the Australian Open. So you're talking about 14 years ago. They did meet in the Challenger last year, where Gasquet won very easy 6-2, 6-2 on clay. And the last real competitive match they had was in Cincinnati on a hard court, where Mannarino won 6-4, 6-3. The market originally came for Mannarino. Surprisingly, he's lost his last 4 matches and he's lost 6 of his last 7. But in the last hour or so, Richard Gasquet has seen some support. Plus 120 is the price with Bet Rivers, and that currently is the best price in the land for Richard Gasquet.
Yeah, Gasquet for me. This is not a pretty price on Adrian Mannarino, minus 148. I mean, this is Gasquet's farewell tour, isn't it? He's 1,000% going to be putting the effort in here. He's from Béziers, which is near Montpellier, not too far from Montpellier at all. Loves playing this tournament. He said many times, his retirement, I think, is going to be at the French Open, if I remember rightly. But he wanted to play Montpellier and Marseille one more time, and why not? Because he's got a great record here. He's the local favourite. He's going to get a ton of support here, even against a fellow Frenchman like Mannarino. He's got a great record, as I said. 6 times a finalist here, 3 titles. Still capable of playing some very high-level tennis. He was very, very close to beating Alex Michelsen in Metz, another indoor hard-court tournament in France a few months ago. Should have won that match. All ends up, by the way. I think he ended up losing it 7-6 in the third in the end. Certainly should have beaten Michelsen there. So he still has it in him to play good tennis, even at this advanced age of 38. I'm not sure we can say the same about Mannarino at 36. He's suddenly gone, hasn't he, Mannarino, last year? Completely, his level just disintegrated. He's just not capable of doing the things that he was doing so well before. If you look at the Montpellier records, Gasquet, I know a lot of these matches were years ago, but 76% win rate and a service points won and return points won, total of 107 at this tournament. Mannarino, 40% win rate and a total of 98. So it's not an event that Mannarino has ever done particularly well in. As you said, he's actually lost 7 of his last 8 matches, Mannarino. The only one he won was earlier on this season when he played Stricker, who clearly isn't fit at all at the moment. So, terrible form. Lost last week at the Quimper Challenger to Mackenzie McDonald. Mannarino obviously came back from Australia, having lost there. Went to the Quimper Challenger, which is in northern France. As I say, lost to McDonald in the first round. So there's nothing that suggests to me that Mannarino's still capable of very good tennis at all. I haven't seen anything from him in the last sort of 8-9 months that suggests that he still is. The head-to-head obviously favours Gasquet. I've taken out the clay match. I've been generous to Mannarino and taken out the clay one. If you look at the 3 matches they've played on hard, yes, I know they were years ago, but it's still relevant. I mean, Gasquet 106-94 in terms of service points won and return points won total. So he certainly had by far the better of the matchup when they were both, a lot younger and playing obviously better tennis. Gasquet 6% better on serve and return. Now, if we take all that aside, if we just look at what these two have done over the last 12 months at their advanced age, obviously Mannarino's 36, Gasquet's 38, very much a fading forces, but last 12 months at main level, both got terrible win rates. Gasquet 25%, Mannarino 26%. And the service points won and return points won totals. Gasquet 97, which is still respectable. Mannarino down at 94. So I'm really, and the matchup I don't think is great for Mannarino. He tends to like to sort of counterpunch a bit of pace. Doesn't really get that off Gasquet. Gasquet likes to spread the court around, make the angles, likes to play with a bit of topspin, get it up high on that Mannarino backhand. So there's nothing to suggest that he should be minus 148 for me. I mean, it's 2 old boys going at it. So anything,
like this show. A bit like this show, isn't it, really, to be fair?
Well, at least we don't have to run around. That's the difference. We can still talk a good game. There's nothing to suggest Mannarino should be that short. So a pumped-up, motivated Gasquet, final fling in Montpellier, where he's probably it's probably his most favourite tournament of anywhere. So I'm happy to take plus 120 on. I would have made this at best a pick'em.
Yeah.
So plus 120, yeah, for me, yeah, that's the bet of the day.
Just looking at the way the market's going to go, I think that plus 120 will be under pressure. I think that when they originally came out, Mannarino was being bet. Now Gasquet got to a price where people think that's a little bit of value. So I think if you are going to take Richard Gasquet, you want to take that plus 120 now, because that is under pressure from what I can see here where the line movements are moving. Let's move on to our second match, which is another close match to call. It's Lucas Pouille up against Mattia Bellucci, and the Frenchman Pouille is minus 125. Bellucci is plus 102. Spread again 1.5. Total again 22.5. And then again, two players just outside the world's top 100 who are drastically out of form. The money in the early scurries has come for Pouille, and Bet Rivers again are the best price in the land at the current price on Pouille. I think that must. If you're going to take Bellucci, I don't know where you're going to go, but if you're going to take Bellucci, I think
Neither
you might want to. Yeah, this looks. I don't know. Well, let me just hand it over to you to tell us where you want to go here, because that Pouille price is the best price around.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at this in numerous different ways. I mean, there isn't a great lot of matches that we can talk about here, are there? There's some that where the obvious favourites have obvious chances. You know, I pick the ones where there's some possibility, some angles that we can sort of go at, but you know, the choice isn't great. This one does pose a lot of questions, and unfortunately, not that many answers. But I'm tempted. The bottom line is, I am slightly tempted with Bellucci at plus 102. I mean, he had a great season last year, did Mattia Bellucci, but he struggled so far in 2025. I'm not completely sure that he's been fit. This is a running theme, isn't it? This season, anyway. Not sure he's been fit. He took a medical timeout in the Quimper Challenger last week to get his foot retaped, which isn't a great sign. He withdrew from the doubles in the Canberra Challenger a few weeks before that, just before the Australian Open, with an ankle issue. So there could be some sort of problem with him regarding his left foot or ankle area. He's never played a main level match on indoor hard. He did play Karatsev in qualies in Shanghai, which was indoors. I watched that match. That was put indoors because of the rain. But officially, he's never played a match on indoor hard at main level. So there's several question marks about Bellucci. There's quite a few about Pouille as well. He won the title here, Pouille, in 2018, but he's not won a match here since. So he's not won here for 7 years almost, despite being a former champion. He's won 15 of his last 18 matches in France, Pouille, but most of those, the vast majority of those, are at challenger level. His record at main level recently is not great. Bellucci's is certainly better, which is kind of why I want to go with Bellucci, really. Last 12 months at main level on all hard courts, Bellucci, 50% win rate and a service points won and return points won total of 99. Pouille, I've had to go back to his last 10 because he hasn't played enough in the last 12 months. 30% win rate only and a total of 96. So at this level on the hard courts recently, Bellucci's certainly been the better player, the more successful player. The other issue about Pouille is he fit? We never really know with him. He's got this long-standing wrist issue, which his coach talks about occasionally. And he had an abdominal issue as well in the Australian leg of the tour. So we've got two guys here. We don't know if either of them are fit. But I am tempted to go with Bellucci. I can't really make it an official play because there's so many question marks about both of these players, their current fitness levels. But I'm tempted with Bellucci.
A lean for Bellucci at plus 102, but my word of advice will be hang fire with it, because I think
see who's fit.
Yeah. I think you're going to get big. I think you're going to get bigger. I think that minus 125. Looking at where all the different sports books are in the world at the moment, that minus 125 will not last long. So you're going to get a bigger price, Bellucci.
You may well not take
Shaw's leans. It may not be fit, but my point is that the market will go for Pouille, but Bellucci could be a bigger price. So if you do with what Sean is saying, you want to have a lean with him. If you want to bet Pouille, take it now. If you don't want to bet Pouille, hang fire with that. But it's only a lean. Just did one official bet, Gasquet in the first match. Now we're talking about another Frenchman. A lot of French people playing in this tournament. A lot of French people doing very well. Arthur Cazaux, as you know, is obviously a player that lives locally, Montpellier, local lad, wants to do well. You said he was going to be one of your picks for the outright market, but you questioned his fitness levels. He's up against Stanislas Wawrinka. Stanislas Wawrinka has been the standard bet that we have on this show, is to bet him to win the first set, and then don't worry about it because we don't think he can last it. But Cazaux has been all the rage in the build-up to this match. He's been bet very, very heavily. And that minus 165 is actually moved now. The price is now minus $2 with Bet Rivers. There's been a big amount of money for him in the last hour or so. So that $2 now, Cazaux. Spread is 2.5. But again, Cazaux is now minus money. And the total here is high at 23.5. It's a question of motivation, as whether Wawrinka's got it in him to go all the distance, or we're going to play our usual prop here and take the former Grand Slam champion to win the first set, roll back the years in set number one, get the cash, and then move on.
We have done that a few times, haven't we, in the last sort of 6 months or so, 8 months or whatever, and it has cashed quite a few times because he's still a quality player, Wawrinka, for a spell. What is he now, 39?
Yeah.
Look, is he 39? Yeah, I'll take your word for it. He's around about 39, isn't he?
Yep.
I think the play here that I'm tempted with is not either of them on the money line, really. It's over games. If we look at the last 12 months on all hard courts at main level, Stanislas Wawrinka, he's only broken serve 9.5% of the time, winning just 29% of return points won. That's very, very poor return statistics, just slightly better than Petchi Pericard. It's that bad. 11 of the 26 sets he played went over 10.5 games. So 42% of the sets he's played on hardcourt have gone either 7-5 or 7-6. 42% is probability equals around about 2.38 plus 138. By the way, he only won one match last season for Wawrinka on a hard court in fewer than 22.5 games, and that was against a very jaded Brandon Nakashima on indoor hard in Basel, where Stan, I think he beat Rublev that week, didn't he? He went all the way to the semis, if memory serves me correctly. Given that Arthur Cazaux is a big server when he's fit, then the obvious play for me here would be over 10.5 in set one at 2.75 plus 175 at Bet Rivers. That's certainly where I'll be looking to go here. But again, I'm slightly worried, very worried actually, about the fitness of Cazaux. Obviously, Wawrinka being the age that he is, that's always a concern. But Cazaux has had a lot of injury problems since he broke through at the Australian Open, not this year, but last year. He's had all sorts of problems. He fainted on the court at one stage. He's had ton of injury problems. He was struggling against Jacob Fernley at this Australian Open a couple of weeks ago. He didn't look right at all there, and against Felix in Adelaide. So I certainly would be betting Cazaux. What is he now? He's minus $2 now, isn't he? Something like that. Mm. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be betting him at that price, given his fitness issues. We know he's highly motivated. We know he's from Montpellier. We know he's going to be desperate to go well here. But I would go with the set one over. I think that set one will be very competitive because Stan always is, in set one, almost all the time. So that's where I'll be going in this one. I'd certainly be looking at a set one over. There's a couple of things that put me off, because those fitness and the fact that it was pretty slow here last year, that would be slightly off-putting, but I still think it's perhaps worthy of an interest. I can't make it an official play because of the injury concerns, but I think that's where I'd go, definitely over 10.5 in set one, 2.75.
29 different markets available in this match. Over 10.5 set one is Sean's lean on the match. And there is a whole host of other matches as well. Good matches going on. But these are the three matches that we have highlighted for you that we believe are the best bets. And the best bet for the day tomorrow is Richard Gasquet at plus 120. Remember, the order of play isn't out yet, but we expect the play to start around 4:30 a.m. Eastern time. So when this podcast drops or you watch this on the YouTube show, make sure you head across to the Bet Rivers website to guarantee you get that price on, because you don't want to miss it. Set the alarm clock early and lie in, which has happened many, many times to me over the last few years. Content here has been coming thick and fast. Obviously, we've got the Champions League action on Wednesday. It's the final set of group matches on Wednesday in the Champions League. And on Betting Weekly Live, we have an exclusive for newsletters subscribers only. It's a betcast which starts at 7:30 p.m. local time, 2:30 Eastern time. And we'll be covering all the team news, all the best bets, and all the in-play on the final match of the Champions League. And you can only get that if you are a subscriber of our newsletter. And you can subscribe to the newsletter by going to www.bettingweeklystudios.com. Make sure you subscribe to that newsletter and don't miss out on that, because there's going to be more exclusive content coming your way. Also exclusive tips as well on the football, and we're turning a nice profit to newsletter subscribers. Myself and Sean will be back on Tuesday and Wednesday looking at the matches in Montpellier, and I will be there on Thursday at the tennis. I'll give you anything I hear, which you'll be able to get that on the Instagram account and on our Twitter page at Because We Win. Sean, just to recap, what have we got? What's our best bet? Just a one bet, isn't it?
Well, yeah, one match bet, which is Gasquet, plus 120 against Mannarino, and our good friend Sasha Bublik each way. 10-1 with Bet Rivers to win the tournament.
10-1. We're slightly behind on the year so far on the podcast, minus 3.81 units. A Bublik win will get us right in profit. And on the WTA show, we had a good Australian Open, and we are now minus 1.23. But we're not only into 3 weeks of the year. We'll be getting that profit boosted over the next few weeks. Sean, thanks very much for your time. Warm up, get on a sunbed. Get
Not today. It's too cold for that. Too cold for that today.
Good luck with your bets. Good luck. Follow the Bet Rivers website. Download the app. You'll be able to watch all these matches in Montpellier on your app if you do place a wager. Take care, and we'll speak to you all again on Tuesday.